The protagonist is a demon lord who has reached the peak of his life when no one can fight him back. He was reborn as a 10-year-old son of the most ordinary married couple named Ardmir. In human life, he does not understand how to contact others and make friends. He is shackled by fear, and this is strange because in battles with demons, he did not even twitch. He communicates with the mayor of the city about it. He tells Ardu that in conversations, it is always required to respect the interlocutor and show kindness. He immediately ran to get acquainted with everyone, but his phrases were too intelligent and the children simply ran away. After such a loss, he splashed out his anger in nature, breaking and shredding everything. He hears the cry of a girl nearby and flies towards her. She, just like him, fought with an ancient wolf, clearing her emotions. Ard tries to get to know her, but she is offended and leaves. Frustrated, he goes home and again sees the mayor near his parents. They were good friends. Ard sees this girl, Arena, in the arms of the mayor and realizes that she is his daughter. Since then, he believed that it was fate and ran around it all over the city. He studied tactics to communicate with her, but all was unsuccessful. The next evening, he fails to communicate with her, and she runs away. When he comes home, he hears the screams of people in the streets. It was a goblin attack. In the city, the guards have already fought back in the city, but the mayor reports that Irina is somewhere outside the city and she needs to be urgently found. Ard asks the mayor for help with this and immediately flies into the forest. He sees a girl surrounded by goblins and very easily kills each of them. He once again tries to become a friend of Irina. She believes that he is deceiving her and that she is generally boring in friendship, but Ard dissuades her and Irina accepts his offer. 2 years later, their friendship was already very close and Irina calls him to the Magic Academy. The two of them came to the consultation where the director gladly accepts them because he knows about their victory over the goblins. He exempts them from the introductory practical work, but it remains only to write a written exam. Upon receiving the results, Ard at first cannot find himself in the lists and later sees a 0 next to his name. He is very disappointed, but the director approaches him and informs him that his answers are indeed wrong, but their meaning is much higher than what was meant. In front of all those who entered, he praises Arda and congratulates him on such a student. Upon arrival at the class, most immediately try to make friends with Ard and Irina. He sees that one of the students humiliates the girl by hitting her. This guy, Geraldo, was from a rich family. Ard wanted to intercede, but their teacher Olivia stopped them. He sees in her one of those who he knew in a past life. The teacher allows them to duel and they go outside. Geraldo is the first to attack, calling his spells very powerful, but Ard deflects all of them and taunts him. Ardu had to win without showing much of his skills because Olivia might suspect him. But having played too much, he forgets about it and defeats Geraldo with one blow. After the fight, Olivia still got to the bottom of him due to the fact that he was able to use 2 casts at the same time, which is now considered a lost skill. Teacher Olivia was against lectures, only practical exercises. We had to split into 3. Everyone wanted Arda to join the group, but together with Irina, they chose that saved girl Ginny. The task was to go down to the 3rd floor and kill the monsters. Many were immediately frightened, but Olivia laughed at them and they immediately ran downstairs. Ard's team accidentally killed the wolves before they could skin them. Ginny was very insecure, but Ard wanted to teach her magic. They fall into the trap of the dungeon to the boss, the Minotaur. Ard strikes him down and gives the final blow to Ginny. She wants to stop being weak and chooses a different path in life. She kills him and together they carry the horns of the Minotaur to the teacher. Geraldo tried once again to make fun of Ginny, but she rebuffed. In the office, the director, along with Olivia, invites him to a competition among students, which the queen herself will visit. The School of Magic would have received a larger budget for winning the competition. Ard promised to think about it. Ginny asks him out on a date after school, but they are caught by Irina, who ends up going with them. Together, they go to the theater, where Ard refutes the story because in fact he was there and everything was different. After that, they went to a cafe, but in the alley, he hears the conversations of the conspirators who are going to kidnap the queen. Ard is about to follow them, and the girls also follow him. Going down into the sewer, they realize that it was a trap and the conversation was just bait. They began to attack them, but Ard killed everyone except the leader. It turned out to be a demon who tried to escape into a hole made in the ground. Ard catches up with him when he has already taken the child hostage. He introduces himself to the people to reduce panic. He quietly saves the child and defeats the demon. After that, the 3 of them appear before the queen, where it turns out that Irina is her old friend. The queen jokes with Ard, saying that she will become his wife. In conclusion, she gives them the ranks of Pentagon Magic, and at the request of Ard, increases the school budget. But in return, she asks to join the Shadow of the Queen, her personal squad. More and more girls began to come to Ardu with declarations of love, but he always got away or his girlfriends helped in this. The director really wanted Ard to teach the rest of the skills. not for the sake of the budget. Ginny came to him in the evening in a revealing outfit. When she flirted with him, Irina burst into the room. She wanted to apologize to him for taking the girls away from him. She catches them in an awkward position and argues with Ginny. They want to have a duel, but Ard stops them. Professor Jessica enters the room and allows them to duel at the student competition. She promises that if they win, then Ard will become an instructor. At the competition, he prays for their loss because he does not want to be an instructor, but the girls defeat every enemy and remain alone in the final. The commentators were Irina's father and Ard's parents. Suddenly, screams began to be heard from the stands. It was an attack by demons who were hiding in the stands. Olivia and Ard stayed behind to fight them while the rest were evacuated. Ginny and Irina also stayed and fought the demons. From the destroyed walls, a golem appears, turned into a diamond. Irina's father defeats him with his magic, but Professor Jessica kills him from behind. She turns out to be a traitor and takes Irina with her. Weiss survives and names the attacker. It was the furious King Elzard in strength equal to demons and gods. She wakes up chained and sees Elzard. He needs Irina's blood to resurrect the demon. Ginny escorts Ard when he is sure he will arrive before dinner. At the beginning of the ritual, he had already arrived in time and stopped it. He killed all Elzard's coma, and Irina threw herself into his arms. Elzard reveals her secret at Arda. In fact, they had a false name, and the blood of evil gods flows in her veins. Arda was not embarrassed by this, and he takes revenge on him for such words. Strong warriors fall for easy mistakes. He was about to defeat Elzard, but he appeared in his true form as a dragon. Ard himself summoned his sword, Lydia, from his past life. She was controlled by voice commands. In the second phase, Ard turned into the form of a demon. He had already rid Elzard through and through, not only magical abilities, but also what was in his soul. Ard charges the sword to 100% and defeats the enemy. After the battle, Ard doesn't ask the stupid questions that Irina was worried about, but simply calls her home for dinner. The director calls Ginny, Irina, and Ard to perform at the theater, but there is one problem. They'd received a threatening letter written on human flesh. Sylphie burst into the school, his acquaintance from a past life, who went to grueling training 3,000 years ago. She already knows about Ard's rebirth and calls him a former demon among the rest of the students. Sylphie sets up a duel with him in which Ard is going to lose to remove suspicion. In the course of the battle, she warms up his hatred, and he cannot stand it. Sylphie cannot admit defeat and draws her magic blade. Olivia, the teacher, stops her because the blade emitted a poison that harmed the students. Irina scolds her and she began to cry. In class, Ard distributes roles for a future performance. They'd also needed to come up with an idea for better revenue generation. Ginny came up with her idea with which her mother, as a student, received the maximum income. It was a cafe with maids. At first, everyone was against it, but when Ginny said that they could serve Ard, all the girls squealed in agreement. Under the guise of ordinary visitors, Ard and Irina patrolled the fair. An explosion was heard. Running up, it was Sylphie again. She suspected the ordinary cook of being a demon. Olivia reassured her, and she left offended. It turns out that the teacher, without the consent of Ard, filled out a questionnaire for his participation in the duel at the performance. He himself arrived at the maid's cafe where he was so expected. Ginny and Irina are arguing again about Ard, but a voice is heard announcing the imminent start of the fights. It featured Ginny, Sylphie, Olivia, Irina, and Ard. All of their opponents lost easily. The next was a beauty pageant that Ginny invited Arda to. In the crowd, he notices Eraldo, who has changed a lot. After the duel with Ard, he never left the hostel. He got fat. He found peace in Ginny's humiliation as his father pressed him hard. The winners of the competition were Ard and Ginny. There was already a huge coup in their cafe because the rumors spread very quickly. It's time for the final fights. The first fight was between Olivia and Ard. He knew that he should lose, but with his spell, he threw her out of the arena. As a result, both were excluded from the test. He is for forbidden magic, and she is for not having time for the next duel. Irina and Ginny fought next. In the end, Ginny lost by missing a punch. After the battle, they still continued to argue about who's Ard. The show started on schedule. Ard played an embellished copy of himself from a past life. He remembered exactly the same battle that he was playing now. After the performance, Sylphie was not herself. Ard and the girls have an accident. Together in space, they see God. He asks to eliminate some evil and lets them go. Upon awakening, they see two moons in the sky. This meant that they woke up in the past. Ard saves a girl who is being chased by a death killer. Olivia approaches them, but she doesn't know Ginny and Irina yet. Olivia leads them to the city, where she asks them to join her squad. Ard agrees, but with two conditions. He takes the girls with him and joins the Verdict squad. She was a brilliant scientist, but she seemed much more wonderful in real life. Sylphie enters the lab, followed by Lydia. and then Ard is very surprised. Lydia starts hitting on Ginny, but Ard steps in and they duel outside. Their fight was only on fists. The battle lasted a very long time because their forces were approximately equal. In the end, they were already lying exhausted and beaten on the floor. Ard asks for an audience with the demon lord Varvatos, but Lydia does not promise him this. Ard learned that now they are in the time of the final stage of the battle between aliens and demons. Verta's squad consisted of healers and sorters of supplies. The leader of the enemies and the main goal, General Bolgan, went around their tails just in time for Ardu. Bolgan fell into his trap and was taken alive. After such an act from a newcomer, Lydia promised him a meeting with Varvatos. On the way to the castle, Ard remembers his estate and is proud. When meeting with him, he realizes that not everything fits together because Varvatos himself does not recognize the nickname of the Demon Lord. In a conversation with Verta, Ard realizes that they are in another dimension with a different story. It turns out that the Demon Lord appeared 3 years ago, immediately conquering a huge territory. They needed to earn even more trust from Varvatos in order to tell them the truth about being from the future. Lydia enters the lab and invites him to visit the castle. On the way, Ard learns that they need to kill the cursed king, Mevlis. It was because of him in the past that he had to kill Lydia, because he changed her. On the way to the castle, they see that everything around is blazing. The severed head of Mevlis is visible in the fire. It was the demon lord ahead of them. He delivers a message to Varvatos about a declaration of war. Collection of Varvatos collected. Ard and the girls were taken to it as guests. Varvatos wants to gather all of his strength and go to the master. Thus, you will leave the rest of the lands unprotected. In the room, Ard goes through his thoughts as the demon lord appears before him. It turns out that he, too, brought in this era. It was the same Ard, but from another dimension. He reveals that his goal here is to keep Lydia from dying. He is tormented by guilt. The same god gave him the task to exterminate all living things. He calls in with him, but Ard hesitated. The master gave him 3 days to think. Loaded with thoughts, he went to breakfast where Lydia takes him for a walk. There they fought again, but this was in order to save Ard from heavy thoughts. After that, Lydia calls him with her to the place where she sinned. These were the ruins of a village where they had once killed all the inhabitants for their own safety. She says that she dreams of dying in a fierce battle, fighting to the last. After 3 days, he meets with the master and refuses to cooperate because saving Lydia goes against her desires. They have no choice but to fight, but their fight could be endless, so the overlord came up with something. Latima takes Jimmy and Irina into the forest, where she tells the secret of the master's immortality. He separated his soul from his body and imprisoned it in a castle. They are attacked and Latima delays the army. It turned out that it was a hoax, and in the castle she grabbed the girls. Ard sees this picture and the Lord, for their safety, calls him to his side. The chained Jinny and Irina are selected with lesser magic. Then Latima calls for an army, but the hairpins presented by Lydia showed her their condition, and she herself came to their aid. The Overlord's soul has been released and he becomes mortal. Ard turns into a demon and steps into battle with the Lord. His ideas were selfish, and in Lydia's life, he wanted to find only peace for himself. Ard defeats him, and the master does not stop blaming him for the death of Lydia. The 3 of them begin to move in their own time. Irina and Ginny say goodbye to Lydia, who already knew who they really were. Ard again communicates with the god, who was very surprised by the events. The 3 of them wake up in the carriage, and Irina gives him a message from Lydia. No matter what happens, we will always be best friends.